Hello and welcome to I'm Your Biggest Fan, the podcast that chats to your favourite artists about their favourite artists. I'm your host Jazmin L'Amy in conjunction with the Noise Podcast Network and sponsored by Satanic Tico. Today I'm chatting with the vocalist of alternative rock outfit Ugly Club, Imogen Storey. The quartet, which was formerly known as Nova Storey, have a handful of singles to their name, featured on Spotify's Misfits playlist, have played Download Festival and own their own studio. The band that brings Imogen back to her childhood and made her want to be a part of the music industry and get her behind a microphone are early 2000s pop rockers and teenage heartthrobs, Busted. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this podcast again. I've been wanting to have you as an episode for like ages now, so I'm glad we finally got around to doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me. It sounds really fun. I'm kind of nervous. I feel like I'm about to be quizzed.
No, at all. It's like completely the opposite. It's like one of the reasons I love doing this is because, like, as music is also my full-time job, I find it really hard to get into new music that I don't already know and that I'm not working on. So This is also just like a selfish way for me to absorb other people's like information and passions about bands. So no quizzes from my side.
Okay, good.
So yeah, the band you've said that you want to talk about today is Busted, which I'm gonna just completely ruin the start of this interview by saying that I was a McFly girly when I was younger.
I'm like doing like a pantomime audience reaction every time you speak. Anyway.
But even then, I probably only know like 3 McFly songs. So yeah, I'm excited about this as well because doing my research on this, I have already learned so much about like Busted, and I'll get into this later, but I also had no idea that like Fight Star was connected to them.
Simpsons band.
Yeah, I had no idea. So I was like,
I've got one right. In the quiz that I'm like making up in my head is definitely happening.
Yeah, I was just gaslighting you into thinking I wasn't one.
Yeah. Just like saying it and then like, and I didn't know that Fight Star was. Did you?
No, yeah. So yeah, let's firstly get into this. With obviously like, the first memory that you have of hearing Busted. Do you remember that first time?
If I like the first thing that flashed into my head as soon as you said the first memory, there used to be an absolutely like top level, like it was probably dog shit, but it was top level to me. Am I good to swear? Are you going to bleep?
Yeah, of course. Rock and fucking roll.
It was like an absolutely like amazing water park, but it was like 10 minutes from my house. Like all the like slides, jacuzzi, all these things, and I just remember. I've got this memory of like my dad used to put me on his back and then like pretend to be a dolphin, and I've just got this memory of being on my dad's back and like what I go to school for playing in the background.
Oh my god!
But I could well have dreamt that. I could definitely have dreamt it. So it's either that's my first memory of Busted or I've dreamt it.
I find that with like a lot of like pre-childhood memories, they're kind of like inklings, but you don't really remember like the detail of it. No. So yeah, it's odd like thinking you remember something, but then also being like, I can't be certain though.
I know. I feel like that about quite a lot of stuff, and I'm like, some of it, I'm like, I hope I've made that up. Do you know, like some of the more traumatic bits, you're like, I really hope that's just my brain playing with me. But I hope that one's true because that's quite nice.
Yeah, it's really awesome as well. So how old would you have been like around that time?
I must have been like 7 or something. Like I must have been I'm like showing my age now. But yeah, I must have been like I think I must have been about 7 or 8 maybe.
Yeah, I find like at that age as well, you're not like quite conscious of like the meaning of music at that time. So after that memory and hearing that song for the first time, like what sort of point did you start actively listening to Busted?
Well, I think they were literally one of the first time I ever like chose a CD. That was one that I chose. It was the Busted's debut album, which was, I think, was literally just called Busted, and it's one of those ones where when you're a kid, you, even the ones that you wouldn't necessarily like, if I feel like sometimes now I'll put an album on, and if there's a few of them that I like, I'll add them to my playlist, and then the other ones I might not even listen to again. You know what I mean? Like, the new Bring Me album came out, I'm like, right, I like 7 of these songs, they're going on the playlist, I haven't given the other ones a second listen. Maybe that's a me problem. But when you're a kid, I feel like you've got, and especially with CDs, you just like listen to it on repeat. So I just absolutely, like, I got that album, that debut one, would just listen to it every single car journey on the way to school all the time. I again, I'm like showing my age. I had like a little Walkman thing with my headphones. I used to get on the bus, put it in there, and yeah, I just used to listen to that like on rotation, and it's one of them where I've not listened to it for a while, but I feel like if I put it on, I'd just be able to sing every single word.
Yeah, I get that as well. Like the so like it took me so long to get Spotify and streaming services because I've always been like a CD physical format kind of girl, because I love listening to music the way it was intended to be listened to.
Yeah,
and like, that's obviously with an
album.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember like one of my earliest memories of just rinsing something, like it wasn't even a CD. I had like the Guns N' Roses Welcome to the Music Videos DVD. And instead of like putting on a CD in the morning whilst getting ready for school, I would put that on my TV, and like that would be my soundtrack to the morning.
Amazing.
Like, multiple times a day. But yeah, I love memories like that, and especially with, I think that's why, you know, the feelings we have for these first bands that we get into are so strong, because especially for people like that, like us, that grew up with CDs and albums rather than streaming services, like it forces you to accept a band in its entirety, not just the bits you want to take from.
No, definitely. That's very philosophical.
Oh.
But it didn't.
Didn't even have that written down in the script.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I find as well that, especially with like the nostalgia of bands and music like this, like for me at least, the first song I discover from one of my favorite bands always kind of remains one of my favorites because it holds so much nostalgia and meaning behind it. So for you, What I Go to School For, has that always remained one of your favorite songs, or have other ones overtaken it in time?
I think so. I think I'll always like. It's a bit funny one because the words are actually, when you look back, it feels like a bit not creepy listening to it as an adult, but I don't think you realise how creepy some of the lyrics could come across.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up later.
Yeah, I think like he wrote it when he was like literally still a kid in school, didn't he? So it was all a bit tongue in cheek, but now you're reading it, you're like, like climb a tree outside our home kind of stuff. But I think when I think about Busted, I had a crush on James Bourne as well, which like that was like the first time I remember having a crush as well. So it's like one of the first CDs I bought, and then one of the first crushes I had as well.
Did you like flick through the little insert and just like look at the photos and put them on your wall like posters?
Literally. I think I said Jason Bourne then, but he's called James Bourne, isn't he?
That's what I heard. So.
Yeah. But it's just, I think Jason Bourne's an actor. But yeah, James, I had like a crush on him. And then obviously I was like listening to it on repeat. When I think about Busted, I think about like singing it in car journeys. I think about it like just like singing it with my friends in primary school, like playing it to people. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just I've only got like, even the sad songs, I've just got really like positive memories. Like, there's other bands that I have like a deep emotional like connections to the songs, but it's all like sad stuff. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that one, when I think the reason I picked Busted is because I'm just like, it's just shrouded in like good memories. So
yeah, I love that. So, like when you first bought that CD yourself, what stood out about them over any other band you'd been exposed to? And like, what were you kind of listening to before them?
I think probably before them, I was just listening to whatever like my dad and my brother would be listening to, because that's what you do in it when you're little. I think we're, for a lot of people, are their music influences are very much their parents' influences until they got the capacity to like share songs with friends or find their own styles and stuff. So I think before them, it was probably that. It was just whatever my like jazz stuff and like folk stuff and whatnot, which I still think I'm quite heavily influenced by. But yeah, then I think when I originally got the CD, I think it was literally just because I fancied the members. Like, that's awful, but if I'm telling the truth, I think it's literally just like totally drawn in by James Bond for some reason. I still fancy him. I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, making out on that. Oh my god, I can't believe I fancied him. I still fancy him.
You're like, oh, what a silly little crush. Who would do that?
Wow, like, what a little fantasy when I was younger. No, it's still very much alive and well. So, James, when you watch this, I'm like, I'll just get rid of this. So.
I love that. You can't help it though, especially when you're like at that age and like not only are you discovering new music and you're like your own identity, but also like even though like you're really young, you're discovering, you know, these like romantic and like slightly explicit feelings as well. So it's only natural that you're gonna, you know, if you fancy someone, you also want to know what they're like, what they do, you want to know more about them, and then you end up coming across music that you end up loving for like the rest of your life. I did the same with Guns N' Roses when I first saw the Welcome to the Jungle music video with Axl Rose.
Right.
On all his little leather and his little snakeskin dance. I was like, I don't know who that is, but I want to know who that is. And then I found out how old they were, and I was like, oh, that's a shame.
That's a shame. That was your reaction. Oh, what a shame. Oh, what could have been? Oh, what could have been?
I know. If I had been born in the wrong era.
No, definitely.
So yeah, like as well as like discovering Busted and like the other stuff you were listening to of your own accord at the time, besides fancying James Bourne, musically, what was it about them that stood out over everything else? Like, why have they been cemented as your favorite band at that time?
I think it's just a combination of hooks. Like, I'm a sucker for like a really catchy melody. Like, who isn't, obviously? But like, I'm just a sucker for a really catchy melody, and then like a big rocky chorus. Like, I love it. I love all the little twinkly riffs. I'm properly influenced and still very much enjoy like pop and rock and anything that crosses over that threshold. And at the moment, like, country and rock seem to be like making so many babies, and I'm like, fucking, oh my god, like all the combo, rock, like the country rock and the country metal stuff that's coming out at the moment is like, I feel like I'm being born again every time I listen to the anyway. So, but yeah, I feel like the pop rock fusion stuff is absolutely where my like main influences sit, and it's just there's just something about that, you know, like little twinkly melodies and stuff straight into like a big riff, like big heavy drums, and then a little piano bit. It's like all that stuff that makes up that genre is just what I still love now. So I think it was just that's the first time where I've heard it and gone, oh wow, no, that's the music I like, not like just, you know, the stuff that I've been listening to that other people have said's good. You know what I mean?
I find as well, like, Busted are one of those underrated rock bands, because like, yeah, they've got pop melodies, but they are a rock band. Like, they're a band. Like, you see boy bands these days and any other boy bands from that time, and it's just all vocals. None of them actually, like, they're not a band, they're a group. So
exactly.
Busted, I think, are also like a very underrated, subtle gateway band into heavier music.
Yeah, which is probably why, even though there was a lot of people that kicked off, but a lot of people loved it when they were added to the download lineup. they were such like a chalk and cheese addition, because some people are like, yes, of course Busted belong at Download. They're heavy live, like they're fun. Like a lot of us who love rock music, that was like our first introduction to rock music. But then other people are obviously like, they're a pop band, what the fuck, why are they being put on? But I love that. And they were, I know the tent was absolutely rammed at Download, and I know that
I couldn't get in.
because so I went, me and Ducky fell asleep. It sounds horrific. I set an alarm for us to wake up because I was like, I need to see Busted. So what? Because we'd gigged. I did the like 2 a.m. set with Hang the DJs, and then I was fucking like pumped because of adrenaline, so I couldn't sleep. So then I was thrown out. So then I was like, and then trying to get up early to go and see bands that I liked in the morning. So then I was like, I'll just have a little nap just before Busted, and then we literally approached the stage as this sea of people was leaving. I was devastated. That was like one of my main ones that I wanted to see at Download, and I fucking slept through the set. And then obviously the walking between the stages and the camping is like 30-40 minutes or something, isn't it? So I had no chance, but I was devastated.
Oh man, yeah, I remember the friend I was with, like, she's obsessed with Charlie Simpson and Busted and Fight Star. So it was like the one band she really wants to go and see, and I love going to see bands I wouldn't usually go and see on my own with people that do, because I get so much secondhand excitedness from the people around me. I was like, if I'm going to go see Busted, it's going to be with like one of my best mates that adores them. And I felt so horrendous when we couldn't get into the tent and we had to leave. No. I was like, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say I didn't care, but like obviously like wasn't affecting me, but the fact I knew it was affecting her, I was like, I'm so sorry, it's not my fault, but I don't know what to do and we can't do anything. Like,
You're obviously an empath, but I proper feel that with the like vicarious enjoyment. Like if someone else is like off the tits on enjoyment of something, I will absolutely just like get on that level immediately. I'm like, I've never even heard this band, look, this is the best thing ever. Right? When someone's like properly like happy about something, it's hard not to just immediately get up there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast too, because like I said, there's a lot of bands that I've been researching and talk about that their band names I've always seen, but they've never been a band that I've taken the time to go and listen to. So if I'm gonna get into them, then it helps knowing that there's like someone else there to basically do all the groundwork for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So your band Ugly Club, formerly Nova Storey, have around 12 singles out and released. How has your love of Busted influenced your own music writing when you first started compared to now?
I don't know about like when we first started compared to now, but I think in terms of how like Busted has influenced us in our writing, it's mainly just obviously one, it's that pop rock crossover thing where they both meet, and not really being like contained to that one genre of we're a rock band or we're a pop band. I think like we definitely like merged genres, but I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that has influenced the way I kind of sing, that, and I genuinely like, this probably sounds like a massive like overstatement to someone who isn't in my head, but I think I owe my vocal range as a rock singer to Busted. Hear me out. Because obviously they're all male, and they're singing in a certain register, it would always either be like just too high or just too low for me. Like, so if they're singing lower, it'd be like if I try and go the octave up, it's too high. If I try and sing it where they are, it's too low. Do you know what I mean? So I would always be like stretched to the max or trying to go a bit lower and stuff. And I feel like I just have vivid memories of being in the car before I even knew what octaves and stuff like that were, being like, why can't I sing this? And like giving it some more, and like, do you know what I mean? I feel like my range is genuinely been like massively like influenced by trying to sing Busted songs when I was like too little to understand that I was probably damaging my voice, like screaming in the car.
I did exactly the same thing. Like, I grew up on dad rock, like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC. So, like, all the stuff I was singing along to when I was a kid was like that, like rocky, gravelly stuff. And like, it took so long for my voice to like start to get used to it. And then I stopped practicing, and now I've lost it. But I'm like, oh, if only I'd carried on, that would have been really cool. But yeah, I was exactly the same. And my parents would always be like, why are you singing like that? Why do you sound like that? And I'm like, because of what you've been like exposing me to.
Your fault.
Yeah. So I tell my dad.
Oh, no, definitely. But I think as well, it's like the in terms of always when I'm writing, obviously I'm writing from the heart, but I'm also very conscious that if I write something and I'm not then humming it for the next few days, I don't think I've written a song, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like something about bands like Busted, the way that they write, the verse is a hook, the pre-chorus is a hook, the chorus is a hook, the bridge is a hook. It's like all of those parts that make the song up in themselves are just hooks. And I feel like I've definitely taken that into my writing, where I'm going, if I can't write this melody and then instantly sing it back, it's not hooky enough. So it doesn't make the cut. Do you know what I mean? Obviously there's times where I write like a melody for a chorus, for instance, and I'm instantly like, that's the chorus. Like, so it's not a case of me over hashing songs and like trying to write like, oh, I need to make this a hook, It's more just like, if I write it and instantly remember it, then it makes the cut. So, and I do think, yeah, that comes from being like listening to music where it's just hook.
Yeah, there is no better feeling than like getting your own song stuck in your head.
Yeah, literally.
Like, if it's gonna get stuck in mine, I've been living with it for this long, it's gonna get stuck in someone else's.
Exactly. It's like we've just been writing today, this morning. I left it to come and do the call, and I'm excited to do the call, but I'm so excited to go back in and like carry on, because we've just been working on something that our guitarist has written, and I'm like, oh my god, I do this about every song we write though. I'm like, this is the best thing we've ever written. It's like we're constantly like, every time we write a new song, I'm like, this is the best thing we've ever done. So yeah. I've got a lot of faith in that song.
That's so good though. Like, one of the things I'll never understand is like, whenever I've seen other like band interviews and they get asked questions about like one of their biggest albums or one of their biggest songs, and they're like, oh, we're sick of playing it, we can't believe that was a hit, like we hate it. Yeah. I'm like, how?
Yeah, I think part of that comes from, I think that's particularly prevalent in bands who are signed to a label, where the label is saying, you need to write a song in the style of this. Because then they're writing a song because they know that the label knows where to sell it, which then makes the money to then be at the point where they're then in the interviews that you're watching. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I know that I just did that.
It's the machine.
But yeah, it's like, I think that part of that comes from, they never were really happy with the song in the first place because they wrote it to a brief. So yeah, I think I'd really struggle with that if we were ever signed to a label that told us to write in a certain style and the style wasn't something that I enjoyed. I would find that really, really difficult, and maybe that's like something that is potentially like gonna hold us back. I don't know, but I just don't think I could do it. I've got friends in bands who are like, oh, our labels told us to write a song in the style of this and I hate them, and I'm like, not worth it. I don't know what your label is like advancing you or whatever, but it is not worth it, because if you're not enjoying it, no one has been paid enough, especially at our level. No one's been paid to not enjoy it, so what is the point?
Yeah, isn't that like literally one of the reasons that Busted broke up in the first place and Charlie Simpson created Fightstar, because he wanted to do heavier music?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned a little earlier there that you attempted to see Busted at Downloads.
Yeah.
Have you managed to see them in concert before?
I can't remember, it was like, how old was I? It was like 2013 or something.
2 seconds, I just need to let my cat in because he's meowing.
It's all right.
I've opened the door now and he's not going to come in. Sorry, carry on.
Cat behaviour.
I know. You were talking about seeing Busted.
Yeah, so in like, I think probably like 2013, 2014 or something, I went and saw McBusted, and it was one of the best like concerts I've ever been to. I'm pretty sure it was at the MEN in Manchester, back when it was the MEN. And yeah, I just remember there was like a massive, Lucy's doing the Papa's. It's a Papa's party, P. It's yeah, I just remember them coming out on like a big like flying car, and there was just so much fire.
Oh, I love it when bands have fire.
Yeah,
I need more pyro.
I went with other Busted like lovers as well, so it's like again, like you say, it's like you feed off that energy, and even the songs that you don't know fully, they're screaming, so then you're just like screaming with them, and yeah, it was just yeah. So I have seen them live once, and it was unreal.
Can you hear my cat, by the way?
No.
Okay, that's good. I'm like, is that gonna pick up on the thing? Okay, that's good. So that was the first and only time that you've seen them as they were McBusted?
Yeah.
And like, what was your favorite part of that show? Like, obviously having been into them since a kid and them not being together throughout your childhoods, like, what kind of like feelings and emotions did you go through when they announced that they were not just like getting back together as Busted, but also with McFly, who were, you know, equally huge at the time, and was like, if you love one, you're gonna love the other.
Yeah, like I think there was always that thing of people, I don't know what it is, but it's like we always need to pick a team. And I think like whether it's, you know, like whether you're Edward Cullen or, do you know what I mean? Like, do you know where there's always like one or the other or whatever?
Vampires or werewolves.
Yeah, I feel like at the time it was, you were either Busted or McFly, but I did like some McFly songs as well. So when they announced they were doing the McBusted thing, all I was bothered about is that if we saw them live, there was going to be like, they were still going to do Busted songs, and it weren't going to be like completely new songs. And then obviously they did like, I just remember like crying with like nostalgia watching them, because they did do all of the like songs that I loved and stuff. So yeah, I think my favourite part of the gig was, like I said before, like there was just you watching a show and then this massive flying car just appears. It's like that, what the fuck, that's amazing. So yeah, I think just the stage show and then just the nostalgia of all these tracks that you've kind of grown up, and obviously it would have been like 10 years since I'd like listened to it and since I'd fallen in love with them. So then and that hearing those songs like that you've like kind of been there every disco you've ever been to as a kid, suddenly you're seeing it in front of you as like an adult at that point. So yeah, I think it was just the nostalgia of it all was my favourite bit.
I had a very similar thing earlier this year. So like, I was not, even though I know a couple of Busted and McFly songs, like when I was younger, before I got into rock and metal, I'd never really like, I don't know, I feel like boy bands at that time for me were too safe, which I think is why Guns N' Roses affected me so much. But what I was into before I got into rock and metal was like Girls Aloud. And I saw Girls Aloud earlier this year with my childhood friends.
Oh.
I had exactly the same thing, because like when I listen to music, I pick up on lyrics really quickly. So even though it's been like way more than a decade since I've listened to Girls Aloud, I still knew all the fucking songs, and I knew way more than I thought I did, and I'm pretty sure I had a much better time than my non-metalhead friends.
Amazing. Like, I saw Girls Aloud. That was like the first ever proper concert I ever went to. Was Girls Aloud, and I just remember, again, just I've got good memories about Girls Aloud because I was just blown away, because I was like, this is what gigs are like, what the fuck, like what? So yeah, good memories.
Yeah, one of the things I love as well about just like live music in general is that there's only so much you can get from listening to an album, but when you go and experience that music live, whether or not you're already into it or if you're discovering a band through their live performance, it just adds like such a extra, like more detailed, intricate layer to like the love you have for a band, like seeing them physically and having like completely new emotions attached to that band than just if you were just listening to it by yourself in your room crying.
And knowing as well that it's like, obviously there's a certain element, especially at the huge shows, of scripted entertainment where they've got the same thing in their ears, they've got the same like, all right, at this point this person comes on and does this, but you know that there's an element of you're watching something that will never happen again and has never happened since. It's like that live element of like, whatever happens in this room now, me and everyone else in this room are the only people who are ever going to experience it. And it's like, whether it's like a lyric slip up or getting someone from the audience on stage, or like even just like something going wrong, you're like, oh, I've experienced that, no one else gets to except me and all these like friends I've made in this room. It's like it's a good feeling.
Yeah. So like, of their, I think it's 4 studio albums they've got, which one is your favorite and which one did you find underwhelming?
I found straight away is it called Night Driver? It was like one they released when they did their like comeback. I feel like that was the one for me where I'm like, oh, I'll press play on it in the car and that'll like keep me entertained on this 4-hour journey for the next hour. Like that's that one. The one that I would listen to and kind of be like all the emotion with it is probably just the first one. Just because of, again, and I don't know if that's whether the songs are good or whether it's just the memories that I've attached to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, first one's definitely my favourite, like the one that I think is just called Busted. And then, the Night Driver one, I'm like underwhelmed. But when you say 4, is the 4th one that they've released the one where they re-released all of the greatest ones and it was all like...
In front of me here, I've got Busted in 2002, A Present for Everyone in 2003, Night Driver 2016, Halfway There 2019, and then The Greatest Hits was in 2023.
Not listened to a single song off Halfway There, so I'm here like, oh, I'll go on Biggest Fan Pod to talk about Busted. I'm a joke fan. I'm a poser.
You're not the first person to do that though, so...
Yeah,
I'm
like obviously a fan of what they were and not what they've become. No, I'm joking. I am actually good. I've got another album to listen to now, so that's a treat.
Okay.
Is it? Do you reckon it's heavier than Night Driver, which felt way more like soft pop?
Well, that's a question for you as their number 1 biggest fan. Do you think? Because there's a 3-year gap between Night Driver and Halfway There.
Right, well, I'm going to listen to it and find out, and I'll give you an update, and you can just put it in the description, and you say, Imogen listened, she hated it, or she loved it.
So, like, with Night Driver, why was that one underwhelming for you? Was it just, like, that, like, it was too heavy for Busted, but maybe not heavy enough for Fight Star?
I don't know, I feel, when you say underwhelming, it probably is just like when you've got, I think it's not having the memories attached. For me. It's like it's probably just that. It's probably nothing to do with the actual songs. It's probably just my it's something I obviously need to work on. Like not like having preconceptions and then judging. But
that's it though. It's all about the preconception. Because again, I had the same thing with Guns N' Roses. Like when they released Chinese Democracy, like if you try, or maybe it was just my dad's opinion that I'd taken on as my own, but in my older wiser years I've realized that if I had listened to it as an Axl Rose album and not a Guns N' Roses album, then like just going in with like a different mindset or just no mindset at all like completely changes it. And especially if you listen to something more than once as well, definitely helps.
I think it's probably like a maturity thing as well. Like when that album came out, obviously we're talking like 10 years ago. I'm like, I definitely would have been like a gatekeeper of the old Busted. Do you know what I mean? Rather like, I like the way they were before. I like the first and second now. It's like, no, if I have, maybe I need to listen to both of them again now and actually judge them off. Pretend that it's not Busted and go, do I actually like these songs? But yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a listen to both of them.
obviously taking into consideration that there are like either a couple of albums that you've not heard or don't like, if you had to direct someone listening to Busted for the first time, which 3 tracks would you suggest encapsulates them perfectly?
That's a really hard one. I'm gonna obviously. I feel like you have to go for Year 3000 because it's obviously like the perfect mix of like I think it's that if you talk about encapsulating them, they are just silly. As a band, I don't think of them as like a super serious like rock. Maybe that's what Charlie was trying to get away from as well. But I don't see them as like this super serious band. That I think a lot, like there were points where like they'd have a swear word or something, and instead of a swear word, they'd just have a noise of like a spring wibbling or something. Then it's like that's quite silly. And so obviously there was a lot of lyrics there where you think they probably were writing that and just pissing themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like about like triple-breasted women swimming around town and like totally naked. It's like I bet they were absolutely like falling about laughing. Like, but yeah, I think
especially as like grown men at that time as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what I go to school for as well, I feel like that was. Am I like copying out by saying what I got to school for, Year 3000 and Air Hostess? So I feel like those are like the 3 biggest songs, but I'm like, I do feel like those like capture like the silliness as well as the like poppy rockiness that is Busted, and like all the like the soft melodies into the riffs. I feel like that is all like summed up in those songs.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably the reason why those are their biggest songs, is because those are the ones that tick all the Busted boxes.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, which 3 tracks would you say are underrated or hidden gems that don't get enough praise, that aren't always in the spotlight?
I think there's sometimes where I've had Busted on, and I feel like Who's David is one that people are like, oh, is this Busted? Do you know what I mean? And for me, that is like one of their like properly like screaming with the windows down songs.
Yeah.
So I feel like Who's David, definitely. And then probably Britney as well. I feel like Britney is one where I straight away, I'm like, just the melodies in it used to really get me.
I wonder if David and Britney know each other.
They probably do. They're probably dating. I wonder who that one's about. See, now I'm like, I should have done this before the call. I'm like, I want to look at like Busted trivia, like who's David about, and why were these like 16-year-old boys having such intense like feelings? Yeah. Like, but yeah, what's my third one? Again, is it a cop out to say Sleeping with the Light On?
I don't think so.
It's just like, I don't know, I can't even remember if that was like a super popular one or not, but I just feel like the emotion from that. And again, when you consider that they were like literally like 16 at the time, well, you're like, they've got more emotion in some of them songs than I would have had like in my little finger at that age. But I don't know how much of it's them and how much of it's like additional writers or whatever. But yeah, Sleep the Light On, I think, is an absolute ballad.
Absolute banger of a ballad.
Proper ballad. But so it's the ballady ones then, isn't it, really, that I'm like properly. It's the slower ones that I've just said that I feel like are a bit underrated. But yeah.
Yeah. So are you a fan of band merch as well, and have you owned any Busted merch before?
Band merch is something that I never ever used to get. It's like when I was younger, I never went to gigs or anything. I think I was probably like 12 or something when I went to my first gig that was Girls Aloud. So it's like I never was obsessed with band merch and stuff like that until I was like an adult and I had my own money, and then at that point, that's when I'm like got band merch and stuff. But I honestly, I think I've got my McBusted ticket and I've got the CDs somewhere. But other than that, I don't have any like t-shirts or anything like that off Busted. So.
What about, because I can see you've got a few tattoos there. Do you have any band related tattoos?
Yeah, I've got Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco on my arm. I don't know if you can see him
Nice.
through my mesh.
A little bit. I can make them out.
I've got some lyrics by Dream State. Have you heard of Solace?
No.
Solace by Dream State. I've got that there. That's like mainly horror stuff. What else have I got? I swear I've got more band stuff than that.
So if you had to get a busted tattoo, whether that be an image that relates to them or even a lyric, what would you get?
Probably like James Bourne's face on my hand, because then I could just.
And then every time you slap someone, it'd be with.
Yeah, I'd be like, James Bourne does not approve. I don't think so. Yeah, I'd probably get that. James Bourne's face on my hand is my final answer. Thank you.
Didn't even need to think twice about that.
Oh.
So my final question is going to be, we mentioned earlier the lyrical content of What I Go for School For, and obviously the early 2000s were a very different time to now, and a lot of people look back on bands like Busted with nostalgia, but listening back to that song as an adult, and like the issues raised in the music industry today, what are your thoughts on glamorizing and romanticizing issues like crushes on teachers and massive age gaps like that?
I think that, like, obviously, I'm not going to say like, oh, it was a different time, but I think, like, obviously at the time when he wrote that, I think James Bourne wrote it about an actual crush he had on a teacher when he was younger. So obviously it was like a fantasy thing, and then it gets out of hand, like a bit of a jokey thing that they did. But I think like I said at the start of it, I think it could come across as a little bit creepy, doesn't it? Like, I think I know that I watched like a TikTok ages ago that says that I don't know if it was him or someone was talking about him, but apparently when he sings it live, he sings "So She May Be 53" because obviously he is now the age that he was like singing about and stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like songs that I listen to even now where I'm like that, like, and I understand it's like art, but that feels like a little bit inappropriate. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just like it's a case by case basis, and obviously it's what I don't know how to say this without sounding like a not my problem or something, but it's like I suppose it's what matters to you kind of thing. Like if you're personally affected by a negative experience that someone's singing about, you'll probably feel more strongly against it than someone who's just like, oh, it's just a kid writing a song about his teacher, it's just a bit of a silly fun, you know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's probably my response about it, but I'd probably feel different if I was like a parent, you know what I mean? Or so, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the things I love about music as well, and it's a creative outlet, so like we all have feelings and emotions that like we know might be not okay to act upon, but that's why we've got these creative outlets, because it's cathartic and it's therapeutic, and like it resonates with whether that's negative or in a positive way. Like it doesn't resonate like with a lot of people as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna end this interview on that very serious note.
Thank you for listening to I'm Your Biggest Fan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your nan in the post. Every little helps. You can follow us everywhere at biggestfan_pod. Follow me everywhere at Wrathchild_jazz. Noise at Noise UK on everything. Noise Podcast Network at Noise Podcast Network on everything. And Satanic Tico at Satanic Tico and at Pitch Black Nor. If you have a band member in mind that you think would be perfect for this podcast, perfect for this topic of conversation, or maybe you are the band member and you're the super fan, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All other info can be found below in the description. And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you soon.